Welcome to Portraits of the Planet. In this edition, we take you to Kenya's Soysambu Conservancy in Africa's Great Rift Valley, a 48,000-acre wildlife refuge that offers a story of vision, hope, and stunning beauty. The story of Soysambu is as rich in history as it is in wildlife. Visited by the likes of Winston Churchill, Teddy Roosevelt, Carl Akeley, and famed writer Evelyn Waugh, the land is also home to the Coombs, a remarkable family of artists and conservationists who've played a pivotal role in raising awareness about the region, protecting its wildlife, and seeing the Soysambu Ranch turned into the icon of conservation and education that it is today. This is Simon Coombs' legacy. This is Soysambu. The Great Rift Valley is a gigantic, continuous geographic trench, approximately 6,000 kilometers in length, that runs from northern Syria in Southwest Asia to central Mozambique in Southeast Africa. It represents the divide between geological plates that are in the process of drifting apart, splitting the African continent. In 2011, UNESCO inscribed the Kenya Lake System in the Great Rift Valley as an official World Heritage Site in recognition of the outstanding beauty and rich natural ecology of the area.
Here in Africa, in this area, in Kenya, it's one of the richest areas in the world to watch birds, and especially the large water birds that are so dramatic, things like the spoonbills, the flamingos, and the other thing that makes it so interesting is just as birds migrate from North America down into South America, here in the Old World, the birds migrate from Europe and Asia down through across the Sahara and down into tropical Africa.
It comprises 3 interlinked shallow lakes, Lake Bogoria, Lake Nakuru, and Lake Elementaita, and covers over 32,000 hectares of land. The area is home to some of the greatest avian biodiversity in the world and protects over 450 species of birds, including 13 threatened species. The lakes are famous for their giant populations of lesser flamingos and as major breeding and nesting sites for the great white pelican. The area also features iconic African mammals, including the endangered black rhino, as well as kudu, leopard, cheetah, and wild dogs. Within this Kenya Lake System, on the outskirts of Nairobi and cradled between Lake Elementaita, Lake Nakuru, and Aberdares National Park, lies a 48,000-acre ranch named Soysambu, a hallmark of hope, vision, and beauty, and the legacy of a world-renowned artist, conservationist, and explorer named Simon Coombs. In this edition, I have the pleasure of joining Simon's son, award-winning artist Guy Coombs, and Simon's widow Kat, Executive Director of the Soysambu Conservancy. The Coombs family are as connected to the land as anyone and have played a pivotal role in raising awareness about the region, protecting its wildlife, and seeing the Soysambu Ranch become the icon of conservation and education that it is today. The story of Soysambu is as rich in history as it is in wildlife. Settled as a cattle ranch by the adventurous and influential Hugh Cholmondeley, Lord Delamere, before the turn of the last century.
This is the first Lord Delamere to come to Kenya, who was at the time extremely important, as I've said, for the contributions that he made to what was then the British colony here. The first Delamere came here in the late 1800s, and he came all the way from Somalia on foot with a huge safari of porters, and the way they did it back in those days, with all these porters and carriages and everything else. And he arrived here in the Rift Valley and decided he liked it, and this is where he was going to stake his land. He was also very instrumental in bringing in other colonists. He was very keen for all of Kenya to be
strengthening the
strengthening the infrastructure and the economy and the colony.
Today's Lord Delamere still lives on Soysambu, continuing to operate the land as a cattle ranch with some of the best Boran cattle in Kenya. Born in London, England, during the heat of the Second World War and the Luftwaffe bombings, Simon and his family moved to Kenya when Simon was just 5 years old, and before long they found themselves living and working on the Soysambu ranch.
My grandparents had come over from England in the mid-1940s and set up a farm in Kitale and had the same kind of problems with rinderpest and drought. But they'd lost everything.
So this is just after the Second World War?
Yeah. So in 1953, the Second Lord was looking for a dairy manager to run the estate, and that's where my grandfather came in. And they moved into a house way down on the other side, and called Lynette House. Mm-hmm. My father was in his teens then. He was 4 when he first came, but he was in his early teens by the time he got to Soysambu. So he was, free as a bird to kind of run around the whole estate. And
this was his backyard?
This was his backyard,
well,
yeah.
Gardens and 48,000 acres.
Yeah.
By the time Simon was 18, he was managing a 2,000-acre farm with 150 employees. But the following year, he was drafted to serve in the Kenya Regiment. Receiving a commission in the King's African Rifles, Coombs went on to fight in a guerrilla war with Somalia, and shortly afterwards was leading Kenya's new airborne unit. By the time Simon was 24, he was promoted to major. While exercising his leadership skills during those years of war, Simon also began developing his artistic skills during times of inactivity in the northern desert, sketching landscapes, human figures, and native village life.
I started off similar to the way he did. He started off painting people because I enjoyed the narrative that you get when you paint anecdotal scenes of people in historical situations like the Swahili coast of Kenya. Mm-hmm.
Over the next 3 decades, Simon achieved worldwide success and recognition for his paintings and authored 2 critically acclaimed books. He used his talents to support a variety of wildlife conservation organizations, many of which he was directly involved in. Despite his success as a professional artist, Simon remained a true hands-on conservationist, and in June 2003, Simon was appointed Project Director Kenya of the Rhino Rescue Trust. There, he would combat poaching and protect a major population of the critically endangered black rhino. Simon's art and conservation activities took him around the globe, but his passion and efforts centered around his home in Soysambu and Kenya's Rift Valley.
Rhino Rescue was set up based in England. It was a charity that was set up to assist in putting a fence around Nakuru National Park in order to protect the rhino. And my father, when he moved back to Soysambu from having been in England for quite some time, became director of the Nakuru chapter of Rhino Rescue, and so he was responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the fences around this park. And he was also responsible for monitoring the rhino numbers within the park and everything to do with the park. It sort of drew my dad into being very involved with the top-level management of Kenya Wildlife Services within this park. And it was a model that we're now sort of working towards with Soysambu, very much in his memory.
During his time as director, Simon paved the way for Soysambu to become a conservancy and, eventually, a key part of an important UNESCO World Heritage Site by building good relations and mutual respect with the Kenya Wildlife Service and Lake Nakuru National Park. His challenge of protecting wildlife in this region was no small task, given the proximity of the city of Nakuru, Africa's fastest-growing city.
We hope to be a example for the rest of conservation areas, but right now the pressures here are so great because of the expanding population. We don't want to be little islands of conservation areas throughout Kenya. It's all about linking them together. Lake Nakuru National Park is fenced. It's become an island. It's become difficult to manage. There's no release for it. So the plan is, and we hope we can all agree, is to open the park up.
On December 12th, 2004, Simon went for his regular evening hike with his wife Kat and their friend Mary Wykstra. The hike would end in tragedy, as the trio startled a Cape buffalo injured by poachers. The buffalo charged, and shortly thereafter, Simon died in his wife's arms. In the year leading up to his father's death, Simon's son, Guy, began painting side by side with his father. The time together was both a gift and a transformative process, as Guy's artistic skills blossomed, along with a deep passion for the land and its wildlife.
I owe my entire painting ability, technique, and everything to him, basically. I went to art college, totally useless.
Since Simon's passing, Guy has continued his father's legacy. Stepping out from his father's large shadow, Guy has found a voice of his own in his artwork.
For many years, well, right in the beginning, you know, I picked up a pencil and he showed me, you know, how to draw, and I drew in very much the same way that he did. But as I grew older, I was almost, I would say, pretty much scared off by the enormity of his sort of talent and his fame and everything else. And so my initial reaction to that was to try and really go off in a completely different direction. But everything always sort of pointed me back in the direction of Kenya. And then eventually when I came back and lived here at Soysambu, that's when it really clinched for me that I really wanted to paint like Dad. But then, even though my background wasn't as intense as his was in terms of his saturation with wildlife and the natural environment, I still went on safaris when I was a kid with Dad and sort of picked up on his knowledge. And so what it all has kind of condensed into is my motivation when I paint an animal is to really incorporate as much information as possible without diluting the importance of that animal, but its environment, its habitat, the way it behaves. If you can include that narrative in a wildlife painting, to me that's the most important thing, and to him that was the most important thing. And that's what I picked up from him, was the entirety of that narrative that he managed to incorporate in his paintings. And he went all out. 10-foot, 11-foot long canvases, you know, with everything going on. He wanted to tell the whole story of the African ecosystem.
Oh, spectacular.
If we're gonna
You get a
land.
sense of the immensity of the open plains. Just some quick lines. Negative and positive space are the values of the landscape. Just to record this in the journal, it's just such an amazing view of Lake Elementaita.
From the air you can see that even in this protected land, pipelines have been put in, disrupting the natural beauty. This infringement on the protected natural landscape is happening all over Africa, as humans fight for space in unending expansion.
It's just a very complicated sort of political thing.
I'm hoping that will all be handled properly by the National Environmental Management Act. So they have to go through these environmental hoops so that they make sure that it's done properly. So
you have faith that the system will work with you and
things have improved. Things have improved.
In 2010, concerned about a proposed highway through the famed Serengeti Plains that threatened the survival of millions of migrating animals, Guy co-founded a social media campaign called Stop the Serengeti Highway.
What's happening in the Serengeti right now is that there is a plan to put in an infrastructure in the northern corridor of Tanzania, which would include crossing the northern Serengeti, and the plan is has been announced by the government to build a road, possibly a railway, both of which would need an excise zone on either side. And after much consultation with scientists, it's very evident that this would seriously harm the migration that the world is familiar with. The migration which is very important not only to the Serengeti but the Masai Mara in Kenya. The fear is that the numbers of the migration, which number at the moment about 1.5 million, will be significantly reduced, if not wiped out, over a certain period of time. And the entire ecosystem basically depends on that one particular species, the wildebeest. So large populations of apex predators would be affected, small predators would be affected, scavengers would be affected. Everything really in the food chain would collapse pretty much, and that would affect the Mara and the Serengeti. It's all one living organism.
As we were filming this piece, the campaign went viral, and the highway plans have since been shelved due to strong public pressure. Widow of legendary wildlife artist Simon Coombs, Kat is the executive director of the Soysambu Conservancy and directly involved in the rhino rescue project in the Great Rift Valley. Kat was with Simon every step of the way with his Rhino Rescue Trust work, so it was a natural next step for her to take on his duties. One of these duties was to assess the possibility of converting Soysambu from a ranch into a conservancy. Not long after her husband's death, the Delamere family had to consider the option far more seriously, and Kat was there to step in as facilitator and eventual CEO. All this due to her incredible passion, dedication, and her desire to see Simon's vision carried to fruition.
This fence was the fence that Rhino Rescue raised the funds to build back in 1985 to save the last remaining rhinos in Kenya. So they raised all the money, they built the fence, and brought the rhinos in to protect them. Now the rhinos have grown and they've done very well here. However, the community around here has grown so much, and we have a big problem with baboons and everything. So we decided to start building the new part of the fence from this point all the way to the main gate. And that's as far as we've got now with Rhino Rescue. And we have the major part of the community is just on the other side of this fence. So you've got little kids sitting on the other side of the fence and the lions on this side.
My goodness. With the ever-growing pressure caused by human growth and expansion, her challenges are many.
Mind you, have to keep an eye on absolutely everything. And that's why this lake becoming a protected area and a part of a World Heritage Site, where we're standing now, just part of the buffer zone for the World Heritage Site. So anything we do in this buffer zone will not damage the integrity of the World Heritage Site.
It's hard to put this into words. It is the sense of the immensity of the valley, the whole scale of this, the Rift Valley and the plains. And you get an incredible sense for the abundance of life here too. But at the same time, an enormous growing human presence. The Soysambu story stands as a metaphor to the rich history and biodiversity of wild East Africa. It has champions and challenges, holds tragedies and triumphs. The future of Soysambu and the ecology of the entire Great Rift Valley rests in the hands of those who would celebrate it for its beauty and champion its continued existence as conserved land.
We love this place so much, I couldn't see losing it. I think that's it. I just couldn't see losing it.
But the ultimate is really how those animals are in the wild, and how their relationship is with you know, the plant environment, the geological environment,
And how they behave.
Yes, and how they behave with each other. Yeah, the whole story of the cycle of life in this country is so intertwined and so fascinating and so limitless that, you know, I've got the rest of my life ahead of me, I know, and still won't be able to describe the entire story. But then at the same time, you know, you see the environment being damaged, you see conservation issues, and that makes it that much more important to really sort of knuckle down and make sure that species are protected and the land is protected.
If you would like to help the Soysambu Conservancy or help stop the highway in the Serengeti, visit soysambuconservancy.org.
Yeah, this is where we come to have a beer with Dad, and my cousins come to have a beer with their dad. This is the Coombs Bridge that we're standing on that was built by the British Army. There's a plaque down there in memory of my uncle. At some point we'll hope to have one for my dad as well. So cheers, Dad.